Kia ora and welcome to One Ancestor at a Time. My name is Suitaloa Simon Young. It's wonderful to have you here with me today on One Ancestor at a Time weekly live stream. Now, this week is a little bit different. I had something planned. I had actually planned to play you a conversation that I had with Dr. Karaitiana Tauru about 18 months ago, and I've been meaning to put it together and put it into something now. It's safely stored on a software platform that I use. And then I was looking at it last night, last minute preparation, and saw that it needed to be restored. And that took about 12 hours. So next week, you're going to hear that conversation. Just to give you a bit of a heads up as to what it was about. It was about, so you may remember, if you've been following for a little while, you may remember How Far Would You Go for Love, which was the story of my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, and how he came to the furthest place in the world from London, England, to Aotearoa, New Zealand, and brought his wife with him because her health she was given 6 months to live, basically. So anyway, great story. It's fully told in that video, but there was in the family album, one of the key resources that I drew upon was the family album from that first reconnaissance trip to Aotearoa. And it's really interesting, the year was 1912. So you got to see the architecture, you got to see the state of some of the towns and cities. They looked fairly basic, especially out in the suburbs. So they were staying with some friends in Remuera, which is a quite fancy Auckland suburb. And yet it shows a lot of empty fields, all that kind of stuff. They went all around the country. They must have been fairly well to do. They were able to travel extensively. One photo, though, especially caught my attention. And it was this, actually, two photos. It was this on the way back to England from Aotearoa. Now, these men are obviously enjoying a haka, a Māori haka. And now I don't have kids, but I guess I have an active inner child, and I'm always thinking about learning moments or teaching moments. And our family history can throw up these things where perception now in 2026 is different from perception in 1912. So I thought it was a great opportunity to get the perspective of somebody who is actually Māori and talk about cultural appropriation versus cultural appreciation. As you can see, these guys are really getting into it, and they seem to be having a good time. But is that something that through today's lens we should look at and go, not something we would do now? Or is it something we would do now? So anyway, I had a great conversation with him 18 months ago. And once I get that all together, I'll put that out on the channel next week. So yeah, great discussion point there. Great opportunity not to quickly jump to a conclusion just based on my own experience, because the other thing is, when you're dealing with anything that is of another culture, it's actually really good to try and seek the perspective from that other culture, which leads into a little bit of a preview of upcoming episodes. So episodes that I've been procrastinating on. Some of them I have scripts written, some of them I have material gathered. Actually, most of them I do. So let me give you a bit of a preview of what's coming up next on the proper episodes. So these weekly lives, weekly except for last week, but I'm really proud of having done a streak of lives since the middle of January. And it's okay that I haven't had people chatting live or anything like that. It's just really about getting the habit in. But anyway, so these lives are just quite simple, a bit of storytelling, a bit of fluff, not very tight. The proper episodes are the ones that are full production pieces, and that's why they take a little bit longer. So the next one that I'm working on now is Becoming Suitaloa. So the name that I introduced myself with is Suitaloa Simon Young. That is a Samoan chief title, a Matai title. And this is the story of how that happened. Not only that, but because Samoa is a culture that is on the world stage fairly small. It's a chance to explore it through my eyes. And I talk about the white person discount, which is when you hear a white person talk about an indigenous culture, take it with a grain of salt. And I'm aware of that dynamic. And so it's basically very subjective. It's my own experience, and it's what I've discovered. I'm going to be citing books and sources that if you want to find out, especially if you have some Samoan ancestry and you're wanting to connect, there are some amazing resources out there for the curious. So yeah, that is the next big episode that I'm working on. It's not technically family history in that it's going sideways on my family tree to my wife's family, but it's a really important part of my journey, and so I'm really looking forward to sharing that with you. Now, as you may know, I visited the UK for the first time in September last year, and while I was there, I had a genealogist's dream trip. Not many actually one graveyard, yes, but many archives. I was able to arrange beforehand to visit 3 different archives where 3 different of my 5th great grandfathers had their writings preserved. And I do feel sorry for our great grandmothers because often their writings are not preserved. It's often the world of men. And anyway, but I'm really glad to have these words of my great grandfathers. And so one of the exciting stories I want to tell was my great 5th great grandfather, was he the inspiration for Frankenstein? Now, not only is this a real possibility, there is an academic in Newcastle in England who has made it almost his entire career to explore this connection. It's a really fascinating story. He's a really fascinating character, Dr. James Lind, not to be confused for his cousin, who was also Dr. James Lind. It's quite confusing, but both of them very important men. His cousin was the discoverer of scurvy and also the discoverer of the cure for scurvy, which is vitamin C. But this one, Dr. James Lind, FRS, Fellow of the Royal Society, was a physician. He did when I was in Edinburgh, at Edinburgh University, I handled his thesis, not only his thesis, his original thesis published in Latin, as all academic literature was in those days in the 1760s, but also he published a pamphlet in English because he wanted people to know about the topic of his thesis, which was Bengal malaria, because he had spent a lot of time in India. So it's a really, if you want a teaser before I get to producing this episode, there's actually, I was on a podcast recently, the Family Histories podcast, where I give a bit of a teaser of his story and let you know a little bit about him. If sometimes the question gets asked, if you could meet and have a meal with any one of your ancestors, who would it be? This is the guy. This is the guy. And that picture there, that silhouette, is the only known actual likeness of him. He invented a form of really early photography that actually captured the silhouette of somebody. And so that's what he looked like in profile. It's pretty freaky for somebody who lived from 1736 to 1812. Just mind-blowing. Just mind-blowing. And so also coming up, there's another story of I've called it either the kindly professor or the professor that time never forgot. And that is the same generation. This one was born in 1750, died in 1820, and he was a professor of Greek at Glasgow University. So the Scottish connection runs strong in the Youngs. So he is a Young, and I will be telling his story. And also, while I was in Glasgow, I managed to get the attention of Professor Craig Lamont, who is a professor of history, and he gave me a guided tour of the inner city streets of Glasgow, including where Glasgow University used to be. So Glasgow University campus right now is absolutely beautiful, built around 1876. But my ancestor lived and worked in the old campus, which is now the High Street Station, a lot less bougie than the High Street campus once was. The university used to be the center of Glasgow. Glasgow's got a very interesting history. And so I'm really blessed to be able to put that together. But today I wanted to have a bit of a chat, and it's a couple of weeks late because the 14th of February is not only Valentine's Day, it was not only the date of the Paeroa Highland Games, which I didn't make it to, but it's also every year the anniversary of the death of Captain James Cook. Now, very interesting character, and as I've just alluded to, quite a lot of connections that I have in my family. So James Lind, my ancestor, met Captain Cook, almost went on his voyage where he discovered New Zealand. Didn't, because he wasn't going to get paid enough and his quarters weren't going to be large enough for all the gear that he wanted to bring. But his friend Sir Joseph Banks organized for a consolation prize, which was a trip to Iceland some years later. Anyway, my ancestor James Lind's cousin, James Lind, try to follow along here, was on that journey and did discover scurvy and helped make sure that Captain Cook's crew were among the healthiest. So as a young lad growing up, as a New Zealander, one of the key stories that I heard about was the Endeavour. Our 50-cent coin had the ship the Endeavour as its thing. It's, he's considered not quite a founding father, but there's a real strong connection to Captain Cook. And I've got a couple of books, and some of them I can't find because I haven't looked at them for a while, but this is a pretty amazing piece of work. The Exploration Experience, Heroic Exploits of the World's Greatest Explorers. It really captures the imagination because it's a cover, it's an actual book, it's got that oldie worldy look, and inside you got all sorts of pockets and documents. It's really brilliant. James Cook, page 50. Let's have a look. Now, of course, another thing is at play here, and that is the similarity in sound of Captain James Cook with Captain James Kirk. And I love Star Trek. Anyone who knows me will know this. I am a massive Trekkie. And so partly when I think of this era, I think of the age of exploration. I think of how bold and dashing and courageous these guys are. But in the work that I deal with, now it's very good. They've got the page number in the in the index, but there's no page numbers on the pages. This is next to useless. Yeah, let's try. No. No. Come on. No. I think I've gone past it. No. Anyway, I just wanted to show you how cool this book is. It's a multimedia experience in that you've got pages and you've got little documents in here, which is like fold out to maps. Great for kids, great for old kids. So that's one side of the story. That's the romantic narrative, the colonial narrative that I got as a young person. Now, coming into the work that I now do in the day job in our company called Purpose Empowered People, we're often working with Pacific communities, and my curiosity with one ancestor at a time has also led me to work or to be interested a lot in the Māori perspective, because it's the unheard perspective from my childhood. I really only heard the Anglo-centric perspective, which I touched on in our episode on becoming tangata tiriti. So what I want to do today is actually introduce my virtual friend, ChatGPT. And I want to let you know that ChatGPT has been, like, you may think that the experience that I have with ChatGPT will be the same as you have, It's not. This has memory turned on, and it has not only the discussions that I have with it, but the discussions that my wife, Salah Marie Young, has about it. She's now currently working on her doctorate on Indigenous governance, and in the process has been loading in a lot of academic papers that she's getting an understanding of and looking at themes in. So I guess this ChatGPT has become trained on the academic literature, not just the knee-jerk responses, but the academic literature. And yeah, so it's a good researcher, I suppose. It's a good information gatherer. And so, yeah, I guess I'm saying I'm not just doing a random thing here. Because what I want to say about Captain Cook is that I don't know enough. I do know that there's a narrative that says when he died on the 14th of February, I think it was 1779, killed in Hawaii by people who apparently had once revered him as a god, but then discovered that he was not, and they clubbed him to death. And there's a narrative that says, well, good riddance to him. He brought so much suffering and pain to the Pacific. And it's a real challenge to the 50 cent Endeavour celebration aspect. So anyway, hey, buddy, are you there? Hey, buddy, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm right here. I can hear you perfectly. So
Okay.
Whenever you're ready, we can get into it.
Okay.
Let's go for it.
Sure, that's great. So let's talk about Captain Cook. And can you just briefly summarize the two kind of prevailing views of him, one as a heroic explorer and the other as a bringer of doom to the Pacific?
Sure. On one side, many see him as a brilliant navigator who mapped vast parts of the Pacific, opening up new horizons. On the other, he's viewed as a symbol of colonialism, with his voyages leading to devastating impacts on indigenous cultures. It really depends on the lens you're using.
So some of the things I've read talk about him as a bringer of disease and even potentially as somebody who is inappropriate with children.
On the disease point, yes. European contact often introduced devastating diseases to Pacific populations who had no immunity, but claims about personal misconduct with children aren't supported by any credible historical evidence. It's important to separate well-documented impacts from speculative or unfounded accusations.
And how about the intent? So some of the things that I've read go back and forth about that his mission was not a conquering mission, it was a discovery mission. Where do things land there?
Cook's official intent was discovery, mapping lands, observing transits of Venus, and expanding scientific knowledge. But European discovery often led to colonization. So while he wasn't a conqueror himself, his expeditions opened the door for imperial powers. People debate his personal motives, but the broader impact is clear.
And I guess that's the scary thing, isn't it? That our intent can be pure, but we can still be part of something that is harmful.
Exactly. Even well-intentioned actions can have unintended ripple effects. It's a reminder that we're part of larger systems, and impact doesn't always match intent. It's important to reflect critically on both.
Can you summarize for me some of the literature or perspectives that that tends to celebrate the day of his death, 14th of February, and why people go there?
Some indigenous perspectives, particularly in Hawaii, mark Cook's death as a symbolic end to an intruder's presence, a moment of resistance to colonial forces. Others who celebrate it may view it as a reclaiming of agency after his arrival brought irreversible change. It's less about celebrating death and more about asserting self-determination in the face of history.
Fascinating. That's really cool. So if you had to sum up the legacy of Captain James Cook, how would you do so?
In short, Cook's legacy is complex. He was a skilled navigator who expanded European geographic knowledge, but his voyages also paved the way for colonialism, which had devastating impacts on indigenous peoples. He's remembered as both a remarkable explorer and a catalyst for profound historical consequences.
Did he write much or say much about his thoughts about colonization?
He didn't really reflect on colonization as we think of it. Cook's journals are mostly focused on navigation, encounters, and scientific observations. He wasn't writing about empire building as a personal goal. He was documenting voyages. The broader colonial ambitions were really in the hands of the empires that followed.
Hey, thank you very much, buddy. It's been great to learn some more from you. Cheers.
You're welcome. I'm glad we could chat. Anytime you want to dive into history or anything else, I'm here.
So there you have it. The interesting mixed heritage, or mixed legacy rather, of Captain James Cook and the world that he brought with him. So a bit of a teaser. One of the things that I am going to be exploring with my fifth great grandfathers, both of them, is the world that they inhabited, which we call the Enlightenment. And I think in this sort of postmodern age, we look at that with inverted commas. You know, Enlightenment. The view used to be that there was the age of faith, and at least we had religion to keep us behaving, and then there was the dark ages where we stopped reading and writing, we stopped doing science, that kind of thing, and we just clung to faith. And then came the Enlightenment, the age of reason. The irony is that the people who talk about reason in this way are just as zealous and just as evangelical about reason as the people that they're criticizing for being dogmatic about their faith. So when I say postmodern, I'm meaning that we're looking at it from a little bit of a detached perspective and going, oh yes, previous generation, so you think the Enlightenment was all that? Okay, we shall see. Because as you can see, sometimes the things that we did in the name of science, actually ended up causing so much suffering and so much harm. And if that's one lesson that we learn from history, it is that it's very easy to do harm with great intentions. And it's very easy to judge people because of their outcome, which is fair enough. You know, it's what happens to others. It doesn't depend on what we intend. It depends on what we actually do. So anyway, I didn't intend for this to be a bit of a motivational pep talk. This is about exploring our history, but I guess I wanted to dive into why we explore history. It's a chance for us to reflect and learn and hopefully be better. But it can be a bit overwhelming when you're looking at the whole stretch of generations. And this is something I touched on last time, that really life happens to us 1 second at a time. And the best way to learn history is, as always, one ancestor at a time. So thank you for being on this journey with me. Please leave a comment with your thoughts if you think I'm being too woke or too reflective, you want more stories, or if you think this is great, let's dig even deeper. Let's go. Cool. But thank you. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure you sign up for email updates at oneancestor.co, not com, just .co. So yeah, looking forward to hearing from you in the comments. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. What? Did I not just go live? Oh.